Hi everyone, I'm Raga D'Silva, your host for Older Queer Voices. Today's story sits at the intersection of so many things we talk about on this podcast: identity, belonging, family, race, sexuality, and what it means to find your place in the world. Our guest today, Matthew Page, grew up in a foster care from the age of 3 and later became a foster carer himself. He identifies as mixed heritage and LGBTQ, and today uses his lived experience to advocate for greater understanding of identity, intersectionality, and the experiences of children and young people in care. But today, I want to go beyond these labels and the professional biography. Matthew, welcome to Older Queer Voices.
Hello, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Matthew. I've heard about you so much over the years, and I have read up on you, and I've done a lot of research, and it took me quite some time. You
Oh,
have
thank you.
so much stuff on you, so much stuff on you. But I thought let's start at the start, like I always do. Tell
Mm.
us about that little boy growing up in foster care. I mean, I think you were 3 years old, like I just said. Tell us about what you remember. Who is Matthew Page?
Good question. I've been asked the question before. If you could see that young boy sitting over in the corner, what would you say to him? So yours is kind of a variation on that almost. So I when I look back at the younger Matthew, little Matthew, should we say, I see a kind, vulnerable, likable child. Um, Unfortunately, didn't have a kind of sense of identity because growing up, I didn't know where the black side of my colour came from. I was always told my dad was Jamaican by the social services because I was in the care system, but there was no kind of concrete proof or any connection with that person. So I had this kind of unfortunate identity crisis that would take me a long, long time to unpack.
Sure. So, Matthew, I'm just going to go even further back.
Mm,
And I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind me asking, and please, if it's too personal, we can skip
mm,
it as well.
yeah.
Why were you in foster care?
That is actually a story that I don't really talk about. I kind of talk about, I'm more comfortable in talking about my journey through foster care and beginning in foster care. I don't really touch upon the story before because there's obviously there's lots of people involved and it's quite complex and it's that's not really part of my
That's
things I'm
fine.
comfortable talking about.
That's fine. I want to make sure that you're very comfortable. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
so we start at 3 years old. We start at with that little
Mm,
Matthew who was vulnerable, who felt like there was no identity at that stage. At 3, anyway, we don't really know where we belong,
of
what we
course,
are, who we are,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But do you remember that boy? Do you remember that 3 year old? Do you
I
remember the
do.
feelings around that little
I
boy?
remember. I remember going into care. I remember some of my life before care. When I was with my birth mother, I remember going into care, being taken into care, being taken into emergency accommodation, and then luckily, and thank the universe for my foster parents who took me and my younger brother in, and I left when I was 18. I think he was 30 odd when he left.
Oh wow! So
Mm.
your brother stayed on
He
for a
did stay.
longer time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He hung on there, I think.
Oh, and so both of you, so it's your brother and you
Yeah,
were
Leroy.
together.
Yeah.
So did that give you a sense of more sense of belonging, or that you had someone, that you had some connection with someone else when you were that little?
Good question. Um, Probably, probably, because he was that little bit younger than me. He was a baby, so I was always really protective over him. Especially when we first went into the care system, I was really kind of probably overprotective. So I don't really, I've not really thought about belonging and with him and how that's because I was so young. But I suppose it gave me a sense of something that I knew, because when you go into care, everything's that you know at 3 years old is taken away from you. So you're in a new, you could be on a new planet. So maybe that was the one thing that was familiar.
Yeah. So what happened between the ages of 3 and 18 until you left your home?
What happened?
What happened? How did that little Matthew grew into a teenager, 18-year-old?
Well, I think it's important to say that I and my brother, we were lucky. We went into a foster home, a foster care, and a foster family where there was lots of love, and we were taught we were taught right from wrong, and we were taught lines. You know, we had our lines. Um, I think fundamentally, even though I was lucky to have that, obviously I had some mental health issues because I'd been through trauma pre going into care, and then there was the trauma of going into care, and the sense of no identity. Even though at 3, you don't, as you said before, it doesn't really start. But there's lots of other things that started with me at that age. Um, I think the sense of belonging with a foster family was really good, but it wasn't too much later that I'll talk about in a bit um, that belonging become a thing. It become I really understood what belonging is.
Sure. Sure. So this little Matthew growing up into an 18-year-old,
Mm.
were you good at academics, sports? Like what were you doing with your life at that time?
I
How steady were you in that foster care? That's the point I'm making.
I think on the surface I was steady in terms of if you looked at me, you know, at school, he's doing okay. He's got lots of friends. He's getting involved with music, drama, that kind of thing. But
Okay.
I think behind that facade, that mask, I was, you know, the swan under the water, kicking the legs really fast, and then above the water, you know, the Matthew everyone could see, um, because of those the identity and the traumas, you know,
Sure, sure.
the
So you,
unpacked traumas.
yeah. So were you able to manage those traumas by yourself until you left home? Or were they needed to be managed by your foster family? Or did you need help with school, your teachers? Were they helpful? Was there
I
support for
think
you?
I think you know there's especially in the 70s there was a particular idea of what a kid going into care needed, even though we were much more advanced now in that thinking and that knowledge and that education, although we do need to pick up where we're at in terms of enforcing that. But I think that I felt, yeah, I didn't know what I was going through because you don't. You only know when you're educated. So I didn't know what I was going through, what I was suffering. I knew I was suffering, but I just thought it was me. I just thought this is me, my head. This is what everyone does. But clearly, after doing a lot of counselling, therapy, and work on myself over the years, I've come to realise that 90% of that was unavoidable. Sorry,
Wow.
avoidable, not unavoidable.
Avoidable, you mean? Yeah,
Avoidable, yeah,
okay. Okay.
absolutely.
Wow. So did you have support at that time, Matthew? Because until 18, we are all
Mm,
like really vulnerable, really young. We don't
mm.
really know. I'm not saying right from wrong, but we're evolving, we're learning, we're absorbing the environment as well, right? So did you have support at that point?
Well, support in terms of I had a family, a loving family, um, but in terms of mental health and my learning needs, no, no.
So what happened to you after you left home? Did your life pivot?
Mm.
Did your life change? Did you find the change in yourself? Did you reflect? So what happened to that little Matthew growing up now?
So I obviously I was going through an identity crisis because of the colour of my skin. I didn't know where my dad was from, as I said before. I knew that I was gay, but I had no real understanding of what that meant and how I was supposed to navigate that in a 1970s, 80s racist Britain and homophobic Britain. I had no sense of, so I had little sort of senses of the different pockets of my identity, but they were all colliding, and I didn't know how to unpick any of it. So I left care. They call it the care cliff. When I was 18, I fell off the care cliff. I went to London with £20 in my pocket. We went with one of my best friends, Sarah. We moved out together. We drove up in a little Ford Fiesta with our belongings in the back of it, and we kind of started the journey there, knowing nothing. I had no idea where I was going, what I was going to do, but I had this overriding sense of freedom that for the first time in my life, I was in control of my own life. And that is the thing that kept me moving forward.
Excellent. I'm thinking, wow, 20 pounds in your pocket and you just kind of go away.
No support from social services, no schemes, no counselling, no job posting. When I say nothing, £20 and my belongings.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? The kind of resources we had those days or didn't have those days are so different to what we have now. And I look at the environment around me right now, I think, oh my God, we've got lots. We've got social media. We can reach out to people. We didn't even have phones those days, proper phones that you could just pick up.
Yeah. Or if we did, we had the phone boxes, didn't we? Do you remember the phone boxes?
Yep.
But we had to have money to put in them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a different time you're talking about. So I'm just going to come back to two comments that you made. One, you talked about homophobic Britain at that time, the 1970s and 80s. I just give us a sense of what Britain was like in the 70s and 80s, and what you're referring to as homophobic Britain.
Well, I lived in a little village in Kent called Lower Stoke, and that's on the Hoo Peninsula. It's about an hour's bus drive from the nearest town, so it's quite. When I say it's remote, it's remote. But quite a lot of people live there. We lived on a council estate. It was okay, but there was lots of homophobia in that village. Through just sheer ignorance, and I think if you were slightly effeminate or slightly different, you would be targeted. Luckily, I didn't go through as much as a couple of my friends who were a bit more extravagant and out there in terms of visual clothes than I was at the time. So they suffered a lot more than I did, but I did suffer. And I think it's through abuse on the street, through that kind of unconscious bias as well. It was.
So did that happen also at school? That kind of homophobic bullying?
It did. More racism at school actually than homophobia, but the homophobia did rear its head. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm now going to come back again into the 1970s and 80s, because one of the things when you talked about homophobic Britain, you also said that you knew early on that you were gay. Now, I'm just trying to visualize a Britain 1970s, 80s. Again, there is no talk of being gay. There's no representation. There are no real role models. I've spoken to several others on this podcast. So Matthew, how did you know that you were gay? Where did that information come from?
It came from a feeling that it's probably a sexual thing, sexual attraction. I knew that I was attracted to men. Obviously, there weren't men when I was 12. There weren't men. It was guys my age. But I knew that probably around 11, 12.
Okay. And you had language for it? You had a language for it? You knew the word gay?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I knew what it was, but I didn't want to use a language because I didn't want to admit it to myself. So it took me a while to kind of come to terms with it myself. And it wasn't until I met a guy who lived in London and we become boyfriends that I felt like I had an anchor to hold on to while I told the world that I was gay.
So did your family know at that point? Did you go back and tell your foster family that you were gay?
Yeah, so it took me to the age of 21. It took me to get to the stage in my own head where I thought, that it was about time that I went back and told them the truth. But luckily, it was a really good experience,
Okay.
and yeah, it's a lovely experience and really supportive, and one I wish I'd done a lot sooner, because
Yeah.
I think I wasted a few years making myself ill with worry about. Because let me just rewind a little bit. So one thing about kids in the care system that we don't talk about is that lots of children, probably the majority of us, we don't want to be rejected again. It's a it's a massive fear. It's the number one fear, because we've had our life turned upside down through rejection or perceived rejection, and when we're in a family that we feel safe, the last thing we want is that to happen again. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. So I spent a long time just avoiding through fear of being rejected again. So luckily, when I wasn't rejected again, when I was held and supported, it was a huge relief.
Wow. I mean, I'm so glad that your story actually is very positive in that manner that you
Thank
have,
you.
because a lot of
Yeah,
people who come on my podcast, I mean, they have just horrifying stories to tell. I,
yeah,
I'm just listening to you. I'm thinking the word rejection is staying very strongly with me,
yeah,
because that is what most of us feel throughout our life, right? When we
mm,
are, some of us are abandoned, people
mm,
use the word, so many different words. I use the word abandoned because when
yeah,
somebody doesn't support you, they're basically abandoning you, right?
mm,
When they say, oh, we can't be friends anymore, we can't be your
mm,
family anymore. And what are they doing? They're basically saying, sorry, I don't want you in my life anymore. They're
yeah,
abandoning you. And
yeah,
it's very heartwarming, Matthew, to know that your family supported you. I think for my our audience listening in, I think that's a really big thing to listen to, because 70s, 80s, early 90s, people really did struggle. And then especially then you get into the AIDS crisis and the whole
mm.
HIV thing. Did your family ever worry about you, thinking, oh my God, this is happening, what's going to happen to Matthew?
Well, I'm sure my mum did. My mum worried about everything. I'm sure she worried, but she didn't tell me that she was worried, probably because she didn't want me to worry.
Yeah, sure. How lovely
So
though. How lovely to have that kind of love in your life.
yeah, but you can misconceive it though as someone not caring if they're not sharing that with you.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's a
it took me a
point.
while. Yeah, so it took me a while to realise that, and that was a relief as well when that came.
So Matthew, your life basically, when I researched your life, I thought how interesting. You've grown up in this environment, fostered, and then you take that up as your basically life, isn't it? This is what
Mm.
you're giving back to the world, basically. So tell us more about that journey. When did that happen? Did you do something between 18 and whatever age you started foster care yourself? And was there a moment in your life where you said, "This is it. I'm going to do fostering from here on"?
Yeah, I've always loved kids. I've always understood kids in a way that a lot of adults don't. Um, so I've always loved kids as well. So I remember saying to my foster mum once, "Oh, I'd love to foster one day, just to give back, to put back in what I've taken out of the system." And I said, "What do you think about that?" And she said, "Oh, I think you'd be a brilliant dad." And I said, "You got any advice?" And she said, "All the kids need is love.
Yeah.
Is that sense of love." So for me, it was always on the cards. I only fostered for a short while, um, but what that gave me was it was challenging, but really rewarding. I can't emphasize how rewarding it was. But it gave me obviously it's a bit of a shock to the system for the first few weeks, because you're with a child that's going through similar things that you went through as a child when you was their age. But once you grasp that and you know what's with you and what's with them, it's it's um it's a really amazing experience, and one that I'd recommend to anyone, especially from the LGBTQ plus scene, because I don't know if you know or not, but a couple of years ago, 2 in 5 adoption, not fostering, adoption applications were by LGBTQ plus uh, couples.
Yeah.
So we're riding the wave. We're out there championing the cause, and the cause is when no one else is. So we need more. We need more. We need more. So if anyone's got any, if anyone's thinking of adopting or fostering, please reach out if you've got any questions.
Brilliant, Matthew. I've got a friend. In fact, I was speaking with him at a launch the other day, who fosters children as well.
Okay,
He's from the Sikh community, and
great.
we would
I
generally
should
have
know
this.
him.
Well, I'll tell you
He
the
sounds
name
like interesting.
offline.
Yeah,
Offline, I will tell you his name. And we were just chatting about, because we were talking about adopting, a child versus fostering a child, and we're talking about the stringent systems that we have here, process to follow, and I know of other friends, lesbian friends, who've been trying to, adopt, and it's so difficult. It takes them 4 years, they say. So there are a whole lot of,
Oh, adopt. Yeah.
yeah, to adopt. And I was asking my friend on what is the difference between the process to follow between adopting or fostering a child. And he
Mm,
said, wow, one of the things I must tell you, that it's very intrusive. They
mm,
go through such a strict process. And he says, I agree with them, because you are at the end of the day responsible for somebody's life,
mm,
but he
mm.
said it is quite tough. It's quite tough that they do so much of reference checking, interviews. So does that still happen? And what is your experience with it?
So I can't talk in terms of adoption because I don't really know about that process, but I can talk a little bit about fostering, becoming a foster parent. So we had some struggles initially, but they were kind of micro struggles in terms of we get asked things like, "Oh, why do you want to foster a boy and not a girl?" Questions like that, which are quite loaded for a gay man. It's quite loaded. So we had questions like that, a few questions like that. Also, the lack of understanding a gay man's. Not every gay man lives the same life, but just the whole LGBTQ community. There wasn't much understanding around that. So I felt like, as well as going through an application, we were also educating people along the way, which I found really quite annoying at first, because I wanted someone to just pick me up for me and my talent and take me forward and let's get the job done. But as you say, there's lots of hoops to jump through. I got asked questions about past relationships. Can we have the contact details? Blah, 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 blah. So as you say, yes, it can be intrusive, but I think if you get the right foster agency and you get the right team around you, it can be a lot easier.
So Matthew, I just want to check on a few things, simple things like, do you have to be coupled to foster a child? Or
No,
can you be a single parent as well? You can. So can you
absolutely.
just talk us through that, the
Yeah.
criteria?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on this, but you can be single, you can have a job. I think the criteria is that you need a bedroom, a spare bedroom, and yeah, there's the criteria there is a lot more diverse than lots of us think it is. So again, if anyone's interested in fostering, go onto the Fostering Network's website, and there's a link on there for people who are interested in fostering.
So what is the website? It's fosteringnetwork.com.
It's a funny one. It's not .com, and I can't always remember it. But should we stick it in the comments?
We can do
Yeah,
it later. Fostering Network, as long as we remember
yeah,
people. If you haven't seen and you're just listening to the audio, it's Fostering Network. Google it, and I'm sure you'll
yeah.
find the
That's it.
information.
Yeah,
Fostering Network. I was very
yeah.
interested in understanding when you said about a boy and a girl. You said, like, and I know it is loaded. I've had friends even in India, male
Mm,
friends, male gay couple who've had this question put to them, saying, why do you want a boy, to raise a boy, why
mm,
not a girl?
yeah,
And we all
yeah,
know it is loaded. So is
yeah.
that choice yours? Is that choice given to you? Or is it do they look at men and say, okay, you raise a boy, and women and say, lesbians and say, you raise a
No,
girl? Or
no.
do they make the choice for you?
No. If you don't stipulate, which you're not supposed to, they do make suggestions. They won't just send you anyone. You have to agree. on their profile and meet up with them first and all that kind of thing. But you, yeah, it's. I stipulated a couple of things actually. One was that I like a boy, and one, and also this is quite controversial. But I wanted a black boy as well, and that didn't go down very well. And when I kind of asked why that was not appropriate, I was told, and I understand now in hindsight, with my experience now, but I was told that I was asked, why do you want a black child? And I said, because lots of children that are in care are black, is a huge majority, and I wanted that connection with my colour. I wanted that they can connect with me on another layer. Yeah, so there's lots of there's still a long way to go in the care system around identity and understanding identity, and that's another reason why I do what I do, because it's really powerful.
Sure, because I remember that you've spoken quite publicly about your journey through the DNA family secrets, right? And reconnecting with parts of your story. So, what was that discovery? Did it kind of change you as a person? Did it help you understand yourself better?
Yeah. So I went on the BBC's DNA Family Secrets with Stacey Dooley to. I had one question: was my dad from Jamaica? Because all I was told was that your dad was from Jamaica. That's where the colour's from. But it didn't. That's all I had. I didn't know him. Didn't have any contact. So it didn't feel. I don't know. It was just flapping in the wind. My identity was flapping in the wind. So, age 50, I applied for the program, and it was quite a quick process. I got on there within I think a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
And I didn't really think about it too much. It wasn't till the identity, they took my DNA and they discovered what they discovered, that I realised how powerful a journey I'd been on. And I also realised at that point how I'd opened up Pandora's box to something much bigger than I could ever have imagined.
So, how did that make you feel, Matthew? And I do a lot of
Yeah,
this.
sorry, that's what you asked me before. So
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
there's something I was missing.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what that gave me, going back to what we spoke about earlier, that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It gave me a new understanding of what the word belonging actually is. And whilst obviously I'd love connection and belonging from my foster family, this was on a kind of a molecular level. The DNA, it was I don't know, it was a visceral feeling as well, you know, especially meeting my family, because eventually I discovered my family, my dad, my sisters, brothers, cousins.
Wow.
Meeting them and being accepted by them was really powerful in terms of belonging. The word belonging comes up again, but that gave me a true sense of what that word actually means.
So did it, I'm using maybe the wrong word, but did it kind of help you make peace with things?
Absolutely, yeah. Because suddenly I'd had half of my life, half of my identity and heritage was blank, was empty. And I think on my TV show I talk about having a cup half full or something.
Yeah.
But as soon as I found the family, that emptiness, it just disappeared. It was instant.
Wow.
It was instant. Yeah. So that huge weight that I was carrying, that huge question mark that I was carrying over my shoulder, suddenly it disintegrated. It fell off. It vanished, and I was left with this feeling of wholeness that I'd never experienced before.
How amazing. See, that belonging is so important, right, for all of us. Identity and belonging,
Yeah.
two very critical
Yeah.
things. And you're saying which fell off your shoulders. That's powerful.
Yeah, it was really weird. It's like I was walking down the street and feeling that my head was that little bit higher. I could hold my head higher, and I just more of a sense of groundedness, you know, as a man as well. You know, I felt, and I still do feel that.
So do you think that this lack of knowing and then knowing, did that have an impact on your relationships, your love relationships, your romantic relationships?
Well, luckily, I'm with a Brazilian gentleman who is really supportive. He's been supportive in my in my in terms of the DNA, especially, he's been there since the start. So he's been kind of learning with me and supporting me as we go. So yeah, I've been lucky, but yeah, of course it hasn't. It affects everything. It's affected me as a person in ultimately a positive way, but there's been times when it's been negative because that you can imagine the type of processing you do as a human going through that. It's huge, and I'm still going through it now. I'm still, I don't think you ever stop.
Yeah. Do
Um,
you still fear rejection? Do you still, when you start something,
so
go to approach someone, do you think, oh my God, what if they reject me or my idea?
yeah,
Does,
yeah, I
does that
do.
sit strong?
Yeah, I do. But I think also as a man who's been through what I've been through and done the work that I've done, I can catch myself and know that I'm feeling like that and why I'm feeling like that. So I can either pull that out of what's going on, or I don't know, revisit it another time. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, it's the awareness. If you've got the awareness, you're halfway there, aren't you?
Yeah, true. So tell me, in terms of then going back into your younger years, I'm going to go back and say, do you have people still in your life from your
Of
younger
course.
days?
Yeah. So I've got
So,
my brother Leroy,
yeah,
my foster sister Michelle, who she's my sister, and but she's my sister. So I see her, call
yeah,
her, text, my sister.
yeah.
My foster parents unfortunately passed away,
I'm sorry.
which was awful. Um, but how lucky was I to have had them? So yes, I'm in touch with my foster family, even though they hate me calling them the foster family because
Yeah,
it's family.
family.
I only use that word for when I'm talking about it, so people can put it into context. But
Yeah.
really, I don't call them my foster
Yeah, I
family.
understand because we talk so much about, families, we label our families, right? Like now in
Mm.
the community, we call chosen families. We have
Yes,
this word. And what are, for our listeners, just who have just regular families in their life, right? What does chosen family actually mean? If you can talk about it a bit.
chosen family are obviously not blood. You're not related by blood, so it's people that you choose. Um, I think that when you're when you go into if you're in care or you've been in foster care, you understand that blood isn't everything. Blood connection isn't everything. It's about connection. It's about healthy, supportive um, connections with people. And if you're lucky enough to have people around you like that, I think you're leading a very lucky life. And yeah, so yeah.
So chosen family is very welcome, right? Like, I mean, you and I, for instance, we're not related, but it feels like family because
Yeah.
we've chosen to have that strength of friendship, relationship, and it's an important. The reason I asked you because a lot of my friends, my straight friends, sometimes say to me, "What is this chosen family?" We all have chosen family. Of
Mm.
course, we all have chosen family, but in our community, it is far more important because we don't have sometimes our own families. Our own families discard us or abandon us. So
Yeah.
it is the sometimes strangers become your families who hold you because and that's the next question Matthew, I wanted to ask you is about challenges. As in foster care, you did say that there were times of like challenges. What is a typical challenge and I know each person's experience is different, but what is a
Mm.
typical challenge that you as a foster child and as a foster parent feel that is typical to a fostering child?
The biggest challenge to a child in foster care, um, well, I think it's managing your mental health and having kind of little understanding of what's going on in your mental health. There needs to be a lot more work done, a lot more support given to children in those situations, so they get the self awareness and self understanding. Because as we said earlier, that when you've got that self awareness, it's still painful. It can be even more painful, but you're halfway to understanding yourself, which you're halfway to alleviating that problem.
Yeah, sure. So if people in foster care or people who are interested in fostering someone,
Mm.
which I think is a fantastic thing to do, what is your word of advice to them, Matthew?
I would say to have a good network around you, because you're going to need people to babysit, to when you've got an emergency at school you can't make, or you're going to need your tribe around you. So you need, two or three good friends that you can rely on, or you can trust, because they'll have to be vetted, not as much as you, but they'll have to be vetted as well.
Okay.
So have that tribe, and don't be afraid of trying, because you can go through the process, and if at any point you're not comfortable, you can withdraw. There's no, so I'd say if you've been thinking about it for a while, talk it through with your partner, with your family, or your network, and just go for it. Honestly, if you've got any worries or concerns, just drop me a bell. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you.
Oh, brilliant. Matthew, what is the typical questions that people ask you when they want to foster a child?
Can you if you're gay? Can you if you're single? What about if you're working? Some say, oh, do you need your spare bedroom? Which we've already covered that. You do. Um, they're the kind of questions that I get asked.
Do people
Is
ask
it
about
difficult? Is it
duty?
hard? Is it hard? Yes, it is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard in terms of getting to the stage where you're approved. It's challenging, but if you've got everything to offer, go
Do
for
they,
it.
sure, Matthew, do they typically ask about the duration of that support that you provide? Is it like, can you do short term, long term? Can you
Yes,
change
you
your
can do.
mind after maybe you've had a child for 2 years for
Mm.
whatever reason that's not working out for you? Maybe your circumstances have changed. So can that change happen? Can you make that change?
Well, you can apply to be an emergency carer, whereby you get children who are displaced for an emergency. So you might have them for a couple of days, a week, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, maybe. And you can apply to be a full-time foster parent. I think it's the same process actually, but
Okay.
it's getting that badge of approval.
Like in your brother's case, both of you were fostered. So you can have obviously multiple children
You
to care
can.
for.
My mum had four in a three-bedroom house, but this was the 1970s. So
Wow.
the rules have changed somewhat since then. But I think as long as you've got space, I think it's okay.
So
And
so
they are
Matthew,
getting, the
go ahead.
government are looking at the rules at the moment as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of work going around it. Josh McAllister, the MP, is bringing in a lot of changes. So yeah, keep an eye on that as well.
Okay. So the changes that are being are they being implemented or they're under consultation right now? They're under
Both,
discussion, I'm assuming. And
both,
are they
yeah,
taking okay, are they taking support and consulting with people like you, Matthew?
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was in government. I was in Parliament 3 times last year
Okay.
uh, on the foster care issue. Yeah.
So Matthew, where is life right now for you? What are you doing right now in your life?
So I'm talking to corporates, to public sector, councils, local authorities, children's services, charities. I run workshops on identity, wrapped around my story. I run workshops with a lady called Danielle Brown, MBE, who and we run a workshop on inclusive language. So we might be delivering that to social workers, to the British Transport Police, to NHS,
Wow.
to corporates. So that is part of the work that I'm doing. Also writing, in the middle of writing 2 books. One is my autobiography, and the other one is a book on identity and intersectionality in the care system. And that's going to be with a publisher in New York.
Okay.
So I'm working on that at the moment. We've got a documentary that we're in, me and my partner, coming out shortly. I can't talk about that too much, but
Sure.
I will more at the time because it's quite exciting. And I'm doing keynotes as well, talks, panels, workshops, all kinds of things. I think my understanding now is that I know who I am, where I'm from, and I know where I'm going, and I just want to be able to help other people have a better understanding of identity, intersectionality through my kind of lived experience lens.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Matthew. It sounds everything that we had this conversation is so positive. It just really makes me feel hope, because so many
Oh,
people that we speak with have such very desperate
mm,
stories of childhood and whatever is happening for them now. And to hear such an uplifting story, it's really, really, really heartwarming. And Matthew, I just want to ask this final question to you is what is that little boy, if you sit next to your little boy, that little Matthew, what
mm.
would you say to him now?
I would say to him, "You are loved. You will be fine, and it gets better."
It gets better. I love that. Matthew, where can our listeners and our viewers find you?
I am Matthew dot online. That
I
is my
am
website. Yeah,
That's your website. I am Matthew
Matthew two T's dot online.
dot online. We'll make
Yeah, and
sure
my
that we
contact
put that in
details are
the
there as well. So
great
reach
because
out.
you do. Yeah, because you seem to be doing really interesting work, on identity, belonging, live on your lived experience, and all the other stuff that you have been talking about. Anything you want to leave the viewers with and my listeners with before we end this conversation, Matthew?
I just think that at the moment we're in a world where we don't use that word hope. Hope's kind of disappearing, is dispersing, and it's. I think that a lot of us are worried that the world's going in the wrong direction, and I think that we need, if we feel like that, we need to do something. And people like yourself, Raga, who you're doing some amazing work, we need more people like you to step up and to wave the flag, and let's get the world pushed back in the right direction. Let's talk about hope again.
Yeah, I actually love that word hope because
Mm.
when I was doing all my studies and reading up about a whole lot of stuff that's happening in the world, one of the things that I came across was that why do people wake up in the morning? And do you know why? There's only one reason: hope. That hoping that today would be a better day, hoping that today things would be different, hoping that
Mm.
things will get better. As you said, things will only
Yeah.
get better. And that is the reason that I wake up every morning, hoping that we can reach out, together. And I love, I don't know whether you know Sue Sanders. Uh, she's CEO of Schools Out. She's nearly
Oh,
80 years old. She gives me hope because she says to me, don't let other detractors push you away, no matter what. Even if you put up one post, one Instagram, something on social media, reach out to a friend, pick up the phone, whatever you do, as long as we are doing something, and that each one of us needs to do something. We can't say, oh, nothing is happening.
yeah.
Like you, Matthew,
Mm.
pick up the banner and go walk, pick up the
I'm
flag and
waving
walk.
as high as and proudly as I can.
Exactly. And that's all we each need to do. Matthew, I've
Mm.
absolutely loved our conversation. I
Oh,
think
me
I
too.
learned I learned a lot, and I've took us into direction where I know our listeners will enjoy it as well, will listen to it. And I think part of our podcast is to make sure that people stay educated because that's, I think, so important, right? Like
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
yourself said, awareness is important. Without awareness, people are ignorant. And from ignorance comes hate, right?
yes. And we
And
know
this
it.
is, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So what I take from this conversation is that identity, Matthew, is
Mm.
rarely one single thing.
It
We carry
starts
our
with yourself.
childhoods, yeah.
It
We
starts
carry our
with
childhood. You talked about culture, basically, our sexuality, our families, the families we find for ourselves, and all the experiences that shape us along the way. And perhaps growing older gives us something very precious, the opportunity to look back at those different parts of ourselves and finally understand how they belong together. And Matthew, that's been my biggest learning today. I think it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle that you put together. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I think I've been through this journey myself. So thank you so much for trusting us with your story and for joining
you.
me on Older Queer Voices. And to everyone else listening, watching, thank you for being with us. These conversations matter because our stories matter. When we listen to one another across generation and across different lived experiences, we understand the community better and each other a lot better. So please share feedback, as I always say, comment, repost, write to us at theviewsroom@gmail.com. If you want to nominate yourself or you want to nominate someone else, you know where to reach us. I'm Raga D'Silva, and this has been Older Queer Voices. Thank you, Matthew.